Well, now we're live.
Now we're live.
Yeah.
We are live.
So
Hello, Internet.
we're live with Ryan, also known as at DDR a freak with the two
Yeah,
threes.
basically,
I'm
yeah.
gonna put your tag in the description because I
Sounds good.
wasn't sure of it. So so let's dive right into the what should we say into into the questions.
Conversation.
Yeah. Um, how did you get involved or got interest or wind of GamerGate?
In all honesty, I really had no idea of much of what was going on with that until after the larger happenings had already happened. Best because I was still a fairly regular contributor to Kotaku at the time. So I saw this thing about Zoe Quinn and Nathan Grace. I'm like, who is this? What's going on? Why does it matter? Huh? Then about a week later, I'm just browsing through different boards on 4chan and get into V, and they're talking about some GamerGate thing. I'm just like, huh? Look at it, and oh, so we did that, I did that, I did that. Something stinks. And that was more or less what got me involved to begin with. And I was looking on the lines of specifically the corruption within the Indie Games Fest and the IGDA were what really drew me into the whole fiasco, for lack of better words. Um, I am really big on, if you're going to review something, review it for the merits of the quality of the work and not for who the creator is or who the author is or who they know or anything like that. And so what I heard about was this one developer submitted a game to IGF. I'm blanking on the name. It was like something in Dino Land or something like that. It was a simple, mobile iOS Android game. She had 8 judges assigned to review her game. 4 of them did not play the game at all. And of the 4 that did, 2 did not finish the tutorial, and I think the longest anyone played was like 20 minutes. Compared that with her beta testers who, the beta testers were doing hour and a half, 2 hours, 2.5 hours easily. With I think the most was like 15. I mean, at that point, there's obviously something going on. What, I don't know, but something stinks and I don't like it. And that was basically my whole thing. And honestly, I just wanted to see gaming get better. I saw a problem, I saw an opportunity for things to improve, and well, we are where we are now because nobody wants to change.
Yeah, fair enough. And what do you think of the current or in the present? What do you think of GamerGate right now?
I'm very much a staunch supporter of the majority of what's going on. I am very anti-corruption. I am very anti-harassment. At the same time, I also find that there seems to be a lot of people who just don't really, what's the right word? There are people who are unwilling to listen to everything, to all sides, and that goes for both pro and anti-Gamergate. To say that I don't have my own biases would be a bold-faced lie. I believe that there are things for me to learn, and I still try and at least keep in touch with at least a handful of people who I know do not approve of Gamergate, but are still reasonable people. I try and expand my horizons as best I can because I want to be able to be willing to entertain other ideas. Sun Tzu started the art of war with the phrase, "If you do not know your enemy, his strengths and weaknesses inside and out, you have no chance of victory." And and to a degree, debates can kind of be debating someone who shares different views can kind of be held in the same regard. If you cannot understand and you are unwilling to listen to the opposing perspective and opposing viewpoint, how can you have any chance of proving them wrong? How can you have any chance of getting into a lot into the into the realm of being able to effectively critique and say this point here, and this point here are incorrect? If you're unable to debate and unwilling to listen, how can you debate? How can you converse? So that's my take on it.
All right. And what do you think the future holds of GamerGate or with GamerGate?
For the future, that is a very good question, because honestly, I never would have thought this would have gone for a full year. I would honestly, I would have thought this would have been over and done with in a couple of months. It would not have, people would have said, "Oh, hey, these guys might be onto something. There might actually be some serious issues. There are these things that we can fix. Let's work with let's work with anyone who wants to collaborate. Let's make this better." And that's been my stance pretty much since the beginning. I mean, hell, the entire reason why Brianna Wu blocked me was because I tried to collaborate with her to find more ways to get women involved in STEM careers in colleges. I don't know.
Would you say it's become sort of watchdog? Do you think it's going to continue being a watchdog?
I think there's enough pushback from the mainstream media that I don't think we will ever fully reach the point of being like an actual watchdog, like the Securities Exchange Commission or any like any of the other media watchdog groups. I don't think we're organized enough for that. But I think GamerGate has a unique ability to mobilize and coordinate people in ways that Occupy failed, in ways that other very asynchronous and leaderless movements have. The very fact that you can that a whole group of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of people can suddenly say, "Oh, hey, this over here, we need to deal with this. Let's go." And all of a sudden, it's boom. There's this huge just tide that comes in. I don't think anybody's ever seen anything like that ever. I don't even think they had anything like that during the Bastille uprising either. I mean, it's such a unique thing that it's uncharted territory. It's what's the word? What am I trying to say here? Nobody really knows how to handle Gamergate, I feel like. And actually, there was that one article that was posted on Game Politics. There was a journalist that went to Kotaku in action and tried, just asking questions and getting answers. And I think his assessment of Gamergate was pretty much spot on, in that it is a very leaderless movement. It has an innate distrust of the news media. I don't blame him. But that there is a genuine desire to make things better.
All right. And if you could change anything in Gamergate, what would it be?
That is a very, very good question. There's one thing that I could change. I really wish there was a way to reach out to people. I really wish that the block bot had never happened. The block lists are probably the worst thing to happen to both sides, and it is the biggest impediment to any sort of resolution
And discussion.
Yes, exactly. The lack of discussion is the exact reason why there's no resolution. I mean, let's be honest. I mean, if you can't even have a decent debate, how can you resolve anything? I mean, it's It's silly, it's ludicrous, and frankly, this should have ended before it started. When people were saying, "Hey, you can," when people were talking to Kotaku and Gamasutra and these other these other news sites, and saying, "Hey, you can do better," they said, "You're right, we can do better. Let's do better. Let's do this. We're going to do X, Y, Z." All of a sudden, this could have been dead in days, and nobody would have, and it would not have had the media coverage. It would not have been as big of an issue as it is. I know if I were involved, if I were involved far earlier than I was, and I had witnessed various news sites making changes and seeking to improve themselves, I would be okay with that. I would say, yeah, well done. How can I help you? How can I help you? How can I help you further? I would be right there with them, standing shoulder to shoulder, saying, yes, we are a united community, and we are awesome because we listen to each other and we help each other. And that's kind of huge. I mean, you think about what gamers have done in the past year to make the world a better place. I mean, you look at the Fine Young Capitalist donating to Girls Who Code, and like colon cancer research foundation. I'm blanking on the name of right now. They donated to Feed My Starving Children, which happens to be a local charity to my location, to where I live. An organization that I'm very, very passionate about. You look at donating money to the porn charity with Mercedes Carrera to generate scholarships to get young women involved in STEM careers. You look at Extra Life, working with Children's Miracle Network hospitals, which I have a very personal tie to. My brother spent 2 months at a children's hospital here where I live after a traumatic brain injury. We have done so much to give back and fight to make the world a better place. And I just wish so much that we could actually have everybody else realize that, hey, gamers are capable of amazing things, and we are capable of making the world a better place, and we've done it several times. I mean, you look at this. We have the power to change the world, and to see an attempt to improve a couple of things, get this pushback and this hate. That shit stings. That shit stings.
And if what is the main thing you think GamerGate has done right so far?
It has done what very few others have in terms of online communities. It has unified and polarized. That's another story. It has unified scores of people from around the world in ways that not even the Occupy movement could. Not even the Arab Spring could unify quite on the level that GamerGate has. And that's huge. That is absolutely huge. And the fact that it's been able to withstand the pressures that everyone else has, that all the other online, news media, people that read about it and have no idea, and then hear all these nasty things. The fact that GamerGate is still around 1 year later, even after all of this shit that's happened, that's huge. I mean, that's huge. I don't care who you are. That's kind of a big deal. It really is.
Yeah. Looking at the chat, the screen froze a little bit. Here it is. Going back to something you mentioned earlier, it's from SJW101, the political gamer.
Okay.
Could you name drop a few people on both pro and or anti sides that are willing to listen to both sides of the argument?
Well, I actually had a really fantastic conversation with a guy earlier on. I think this was back in September, I want to say. He goes by the handle of Gramular, like a graham crackula, graham cracker and granular together, granular. It's kind of a funny name. He and I both had a very fascinating conversation. I don't think either of us fully agree that the discussion was over, but we both appreciated the conversation that we had. And unfortunately, that's really been the only person that's really been willing to have a discussion and want to listen as much as they wanted to talk.
Yeah, I've
And Graham, if you suddenly get yourself brigaded with like a ton of tweets and whatever, I apologize, but you are awesome, and don't ever stop being awesome. And if those haters start brigading you, fuck them.
yeah,
Full disclosure.
yeah, I really tried to get antis on. I think only 2 accepted so far, with one who was a disaster, who didn't. We had spent 2 streams trying to. Kaz was his name. Oh my god, he was a what should I say? A mild version of a Jody Tate, I would say.
Okay.
Without the killing and stuff, but there was constantly moving goalposts and throwing shit, and yeah. And then we had Tim. I haven't been in contact with him. Wanted to get him on back again. I had him on GG Stream 29.
Okay.
And where we had actually a nice discussion with him, because he made a very provocative video, and I wanted him to get on because I saw his video, and I just said, okay, do you want to come on my stream and talk about this? I flatly said it in the comments, and he said yes, and he's I think one of the few who's actually been some kind of reasonable when it comes to, like, at least people who've been willing to come on.
And that's a very rare thing I've noticed. It's kind of terrible that you have to point out the people who are doing it right because everybody else is doing it so wrong.
Yeah.
And I really would like to see more people willing to have just a discussion, and say, I would come up and say, no, I'm not going to resort to personal attacks. I'm going to make sure that I keep this as civil as possible, and I would like you to do, and I would like to ask for the same courtesy out of you. I would be hard pressed to find, and the fact that that people are so hard pressed to find people willing to have just a decent civil conversation. It's really terrible,
I don't know really sure if I can go on GamerGate and actually ask. I'm probably gonna get banned.
You'll get banned just for asking questions.
Yeah, they featured one of my articles on there, and I was really careful.
Yeah. Remember that article I was telling you about on Game Politics, where the guy was talking on KIA? He tried to ask a couple of questions on GamerGate and got banned for posting in KIA.
Yeah, well, they posted my article on GamerGate, and I pointed a few things out, but I was really careful. I'm trying to be as generic as possible with my answers.
Yeah, so that's the hard part, is the fact that that so many people are forced to like walk on eggshells and not able to actually converse, and that's the other huge thing. The fact that the lack of conversation is also self-enforced for fear of repercussion. I mean, geez, the fact that we had Xbro and then that other developer having to speak on complete condition of anonymity. I mean, that speaks volumes about just how much they fear the reprisal if they were to go on the record.
Yeah, and regarding the question from the guy from the chat, I mean, I think pretty much everyone who's been on my stream has been willing to listen to the other side. It's just very, very, very hard to get someone from the other side.
Yeah. Any other
Um,
questions from chat or?
yeah, I had one more.
Actually, you know what? I'm gonna pull up that chat and see if there's any questions that I like in there.
There are just two questions. So this is the second one. It's from the same guy.
Okay.
Where do you stand with the debate between ethics in journalism and only talking about feminism, social justice, etc. as well?
Where does he stand with the debate between ethics and journalism only and talking about feminism, social justice, etc. as well? That is a very, very good question. um, honestly, I don't think anyone is truly opposed to equality when it comes to the idea of feminism. The the biggest complaints that I hear, and I'll say right now that I agree with them, is that when you move away from equality for all to power for some, or reversing those in power to another group, um, I think that is a misguided step, and moving and we shouldn't move in that direction. As far as ethics and journalism versus feminism and social justice, I think it is possible for either one to really exist at the same time. You can have social justice, and you can be talking about ethics and journalism. You can, if you have a say, like what Lynn Walsh said at the SPJ Airplay, was it 2 weekends ago? Yeah. Like what she said, she was talking about from an editor's perspective. If I had one of my writers come up and say he or she wanted to cover a restaurant, and they had a financial ties, or they were close friends with the owner, I would not send them to cover that story. I would send somebody else. And I think that is the big sticking point for at least more than a handful of GamerGaters out there. And SJW 101, feel free to follow me. My handle's in the description. If you want to chat, you want to have a conversation, I am always more than willing to chat. Hit me up. Absolutely. I just saw that in the chat there.
Yeah, I was actually thinking of doing the next one with him, but I forgot his freaking Twitter handle. So if he could post it in the chat, that would be really great.
Or just message either of us, yeah.
Yeah, because I really wanted to get him one of these interviews. Because yeah, that would be great. I also have a question from Paulie Paul.
Yeah.
Um, what's your take on Randy Harber's attack on Claire Schumann?
I was not aware she attacked Claire Schumann, and frankly, I don't remember who Claire Schumann is.
Yeah, I don't know either.
I try and stay away from Randy. Everything I've seen from her Twitter handle is
You use their own words against them. Toxic.
yeah, it's not very nice. You know, she seems like a very bitter person, and I feel bad for her for that. I really do. I think I've been in a similar headspace in my lifetime, and it eats away at your soul. It really does. It is not healthy. It's not good for your self-esteem. It's not good for your overall health.
Yeah, to
And
be that angry.
angry all the time. Yeah, it's not a good place to be. And actually, I had to step away from Twitter back in, excuse me, that was back in like April, I think I want to say. And oh, okay.
Yeah, but we still don't know how the interaction. It's kind of vague. So
Without the context of the interaction, I think, see, I'm also one of those. I went to a Christian high school when I was growing up, and we had a lot of talk about theology. And I'm gonna answer this question with a really long story and a sort of non-answer. So bear with me here. It'll all make sense when I'm done. So during my schooling, we had your standard math, science, reading, etc. We also had a Bible class, a theology class, all 4 years. And during my senior year, we had, the theme was Christianity in the 21st century. Moving into the new millennium, how do we maintain the faith in the digital age? And Access Fiverr, I'm just a nobody, but I have opinions in it, and this guy thinks I'm worth something. So apparently he wants me to talk to him. So there you go. So as we were discussing the ideas of how do you maintain your faith, we got to talking to should be in the description about this writing that C.S. Lewis had done. He was actually a brilliant theologian in addition to writing the Chronicles of Narnia books, and he wrote quite a bit about uh, asking questions as a means of making your faith stronger. By asking questions, you can weed out the false faiths, and you can grow, and subsequently you can also strengthen your faith as well. And by that same token, I think asking questions is a very, very good idea, regardless of where, regardless of the topic. Always ask questions, because that way you can spot the lies, you can sniff out the bullshit, and you can ultimately uncover the truth. To see God, if without knowing the whole story of what happened with Claire Schumann, Polly, I'm sorry, I don't really know a whole lot about it, so I can't really dive into specifics. But I honestly believe that if she was asking questions in earnest, and Ghazi blocked her and banned her and brigaded her for it, I think that only serves to prove what Gamergate called out in the first place. I believe that we should always be asking questions. We should always be saying, something doesn't smell right here. We should do so. We should look into this. Without asking questions, you open yourself up to being manipulated. You open yourself up to believing in lies. You open yourself up to being blue-pilled. And by asking questions, you can uncover the truth. And I think that's a huge thing. I'm definitely gonna have to look into this, because this is actually pretty interesting. Um, and it's terrible to hear that somebody got brigaded for asking questions, because I honestly believe that we should be, we should be asking, and we should be conversing. And I may try. I may, her Twitter is still available, and she doesn't use the block bot. I might, Randy's block list. I might have to reach out to her and just have a chat, because
Yeah, but it's kind of hard just
that's
to
medicine.
take do an opinion on something we're not really we don't know the context or the whole story.
Yeah.
But if there are any other questions,
Yeah, if you guys have any other questions you want to ask, absolutely. Um, I suppose I could probably talk about my gaming history.
yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, sure, why not? So I actually got started with gaming when I was 3 years old. This is actually kind of awesome. I used to go to the YMCA, one of the local fitness clubs, and I do swimming lessons every Saturday morning. And so uh, after our swimming lessons, my dad and I would play, Galaga and Pac-Man, and for a while they had Pinbot. Yes, I actually here. I'll just take this question now from SJW 101. Yes, I did watch SPJ Airplay. What do you want to know?
Oh,
Do 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 do
what
do
was the
do
question?
do do do. SJW 101 wanted to know if I watched the SPJ Airplay conference 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, I think you mentioned it. So
Yeah, I did watch it. I thought it was very, very fascinating. And it was a really The first panel I thought was probably one of the best things to happen to Gamergate in a very long time because it was an earnest conversation that felt like it was actually making progress. It actually felt like there was conversation happening and people were talking and listening. I felt like Ash Shao and what's his name, Alan Bakhtari, were listening to what Lynn Walsh and Derek Smart and I'm blanking on the third guy's name had to say.
Derek
Uh,
Derek
uh,
Smart, Lynn Walsh, and Ren LaForme.
Ren LaForte, thank you. That was the last one. Yeah, I thought that the back and forth between them was constructive. I felt like it was a step in the right direction. I felt like people were able to listen and learn, and I felt like it was a very I think it was probably one of the best things to happen to Gamergate and and in general and to journalism in general. I think that second part, Kretzky just needed to shut the hell up.
Yeah, I was about to say that as well. I'm gonna do a whole stream just about everything, but I can mention he interrupted way too much.
And
He
I think
he
Darrow,
interrupted the flow as well, and I guess he wanted to keep the topic on the journalism part, but because many people watching didn't know the context of what they were talking about, so
right.
there was so Milo and the other ones were setting up picture of what the world of Gamergate and what Gamergate people have encountered, and they were constantly getting interrupted by saying this
Which
is
would annoy the shit out of anyone, let's be honest.
yeah. And
I do, however, believe that Milo can be very long-winded,
yeah, yeah. There
and
was some
there
parts he
there
was
are there
really
are
really long.
there is a time and a place for asking him to stop and let others respond and other people join in. And I do have to say, um, Christina Summers' reaction to learning about what furries are cracked me up. That was too funny for words.
But my main issue was there was a part of where actually Derek Smart called out Koretsky
Yes,
because he was constantly interrupting and said, "Look, this is why people are upset, and you have to acknowledge this." And that also that the neutral ones, not Derek Smart, but the two other ones, Ron Laform and Lynn Walsh, they had issues with because it would take too much time on covering Gamergate,
it
and
is true. There's a
that's a
lot of
lot of horseshit to be frank.
well, there's a lot of information to go over, and like I've even pulled up Thunderfoot's Gamergate in 60 seconds video for some of my friends. They watch and they still go, "I have no idea what's going on."
Yeah, yeah, but if you really want to cover this topic, any topic really, you need like Milo said, he's been doing it for a year, and you have to use time, and you have to do the work.
Yeah, and there's always you always have to do. I mean, sorry, I got distracted by Polly over here saying I believe Koretsky tried to paint the Gamergate movement in a negative light by bringing in furries, even though I don't have any special feeling towards them. Yeah, I agree with that sentiment wholeheartedly. I don't really care what you get your rocks off to, or if you just like the community. It's just another facet of you, and I'm involved with one of the larger anime conventions in my region. It's actually one of the largest in the state, and we have our head of logistics is not really all that into anime. It's actually kind of funny. He's more of a fur fan, and he has friends who are fur fans who are also at this convention, and he's made other friends as a result. So he's there because of the community that has been built up, and not because he likes anime. For me, it's a very similar vein in that I'm not there because of a fan of anime or anything. I run the video game room. I'm there for the gaming more than anything. That, and I've spent enough time with some of our guests who are just really awesome people, and I like being around them. And it's an opportunity to come together and and catch up. I mean, for crying out loud, back in 2012, we had Michael Tatum show up. He voiced Sir Hammerlock in Borderlands 2. He was Scar in Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood. He's had a bunch of really good roles. Um, so he was there in 2012. It was right after Borderlands 2 came out, and him, his partner Joshua, and I all just hung out, and the staff have their own meet and greet with the guests on the Thursday night before. He and I get to talking, and we keep talking. Joshua comes over, and suddenly all three of us are chatting for 3.5 hours. It was like 2.5, 3 hours talking about beer and cameras. It was the coolest thing ever, and it's those little moments where you're just like, this is really, really cool. Okay, so Polly's got another interesting question here. Would you agree with me that we, as nerds and geeks, become vulnerable to the mainstream because of our constant infighting, such as console war, fandom war, stuff like that? Honestly, I wouldn't. If we were vulnerable to infighting, the NFL would have fallen apart a lot sooner. I see like the console wars and the PC master race, and XYZ is better than MNO. It's basically rooting for different teams, and at the end of the day, we're all gamers, we're all geeks, we're all nerds, and that's all that matters. When when needed, we come together. We don't care whether or not you prefer Call of Duty over Final Fantasy. We don't care if you only play Madden. We don't care if you only play Magic or Ticket to Ride or Monopoly or hell, even Apples to Apples. All that matters is when the shit hits the fan, we're all side by side standing here going, we are united. And that's what matters.
Yeah, there's a picture of there's a meme going around with Legolas and Gimli fighting side by side and running towards the gates of Mordor.
I know what one you're talking about. It's great. That's basically the entire gist of what has happened. We've seen a lot of these very disparate groups all of a sudden coming together and going, "You ready? Let's do this." And it's actually kind of cool, because I would not have really gotten myself involved with what was the group. Well, for example, I had no idea that the charity Include Girls even existed, and they run seminars for teenage girls talking about computer programming and science and biochem and basically STEM careers, getting young girls fired up about doing awesome shit. And I had no idea this organization even existed until I found out that Siloraptor was on the IGDA was on Randy Harper's block list and called one of the worst harassers of the internet by the IGDA, who he worked with. So I mean, like, I found a lot of really interesting groups that I would not have really affiliated with myself with up until this point, up until Gamergate actually happened.
SGW11 says infighting is a positive thing. I think it meant thing and not think.
Yeah, group thing is a bad thing.
Yeah.
And I will say that I agree with you 100%. And that goes back into the whole asking questions thing. I honestly think that once everything dies down, Gamergate will eventually fade back into the shadows. When, I have no idea, and it won't be like a Batman sort of thing. Actually, it probably would be kind of like a Batman sort of thing. They see the signal, boom, right there. It probably will be something like that. But I think that we do have some very disparate groups that will go back to doing their own thing. And once that's done, you know, it'll be back to the same back and forth, PC master race, console twin sticks are better, the back and forth will happen again. But I think that it won't be I don't think that'll be a bad thing.
Um,
I will agree with you on the whole transgender thing. That is,
yeah, I probably learned quite a bit as well, I must admit.
it's kind of weird. I was reading I read something very fascinating online talking about how the gay bars don't like trans people because of the bad apples that come in, make a stink everywhere about not catering to my needs. And honestly, personally, I don't care what you got between your legs. I don't care if you feel like you're female. Be yourself, be happy, but you're only responsible for you. If your actions make someone else uncomfortable, that's fine. If somebody else's actions make you uncomfortable, that's the way it is. And too often I see people trying to get the rest of the world to conform to their worldview. And frankly, that's kind of what's with Gamergate. But overall, I think there is a real opportunity for growth. And I think, and you're right, Tara, Chobit, and Seashell are all great examples of transgender people who definitely work to paint the overall in a better light
Well,
because they are.
I've had also a lot of people. I've also Renex is also transgender. She was part of many of
Yes.
my first streams. She's kind of pulled a little back because she's been busy. But I've also had gay people on. I've had
I had no
people
idea.
from all sorts of backgrounds. So
Yeah. And SJW 101 asks, why do you think people are so quick to block? Um, I think the best answer to this comes from something that I saw about third wave feminism on 4chan. When they were talking about this in I don't I wasn't even around for the original thread. I was only there for um I only caught the screen cap of it. This person was talking about how third wave feminism is so quick to cut. They encourage you to cut the problematic things out of your life. If that person doesn't agree with you, cut them out of your life. That your parents say that you're making a mistake, you cut them out of your life. Your best friend uses the N word, cut them out of your life. And eventually it leads you to being alone because you've cut everybody else out of your life. And not only that, but it also forces you to increasingly live in a state of fear that you have to conform to a specific ideology. And if somebody calls you out for being problematic, all of a sudden you will be excommunicated from everything. And all those other support networks that you cut out of your life are not there anymore. So then what happens is you got this mindset to begin with, and all of a sudden you see someone who disagrees with you, block them. Done. Like, I don't even want to mess with you. I don't want to deal with you. I don't want to hear anything about you. You are wrong, and I say you are gone. And that's what happens. Is it right? Is it wrong? I couldn't tell you. It's definitely bothersome in that it it digs the trenches further, and I believe it.
all
I
right.
believe it. I believe it. It's not. I wish I could say that this was a unique experience, but from what I see, it seems like that happens a lot more than we realize.
Yeah, true enough.
Bye, Ian. I guess you don't want to follow me anymore. Okay.
Um, 1 second.
Verilo's got an interesting question. What are my thoughts on ethics cucks? I've tried to stay away from this whole thing as much as I can, so I'm not going to answer this question. Partly because I have no idea who would be considered an ethics cuck, and also because I'm just not going to touch the poop. I'm just not going to touch the poop. I'm sorry, Verilo, but I'm just not going to touch the poop. Next question. No.
Fair enough. Yeah. I don't think there's
This
any
guy messaged
more.
on Skype here. Oh, that was the stream group. Okay, carry on.
Senpai noticed me.
I'm
Unless
oh God, you're in trouble.
unless there are any more questions, I think we're gonna try and wrap things up.
Okay.
Any statements or anything you want to say before we close this out?
You know, it's kind of terrible to say this, but and Verlo rephrased the question. What do I think of the ethics-only narrative? I think there's something to be said about pushing for ethics in journalism. I mean, hell, even Lynn Walsh said that Kotaku was doing some bad stuff. But the ones who hyper focus on that will miss the bigger picture. They'll miss out on other opportunities to improve other things. And Gamergate should not be a police force. It should not be like a specter looming over every writer afraid of what they're going to say is going to get them called up for ethical violations. And that is the last thing that I want to see happen. I would rather see ethics policies updated and then just move on. I would rather see people coming together to make our space better. I would rather see the internet become a place where people can find their own niche communities. I mean, you look at the way the world is set up now, people will flock to their own community and stay there. And every time somebody tries to get outside of their community and into another and force their way in, that's where everything falls apart. That's where we get all these bloody battles that take place. That is where we suddenly have brothers turn on brothers, for the sake of example, civil war. Do I think Gamergate should not focus on SJWs? I think there is a need for some limelight, some spotlights being cast on specific individuals who are going out of their way to make the world around them a worse place. Beyond that, I don't think it should be a primary focus because it's too easy for that to turn into a red herring. I think we should be calling out assholes for absolutely. I think we should definitely be dealing with, calling out the people that are doing bad stuff. But we should not make that our only focus. Our focus, the focus of Gamergate should be to make the world better, to make gaming better, and to push out those that would try and change the community to suit their own ends. And I think that what Gamergate has done so far has been a great starting point. It's a good way to, calling for, updated code of ethics, calling for more professional, more calling for journalists to be more professional in their dealings. I think those are great things to be doing, and I think that is a great first step. Do I think SJW ideology is the source of the problem in games journalism? I think it is a catalyst. I think there are more factors than just it, but I think it's certainly contributed. It is not the only problem. I definitely see cronyism. I see bribery as issues. Now you're just trolling. That fuel can't melt steel beams.
Yeah, let's just wrap up before we get overwhelmed with the question.
Right.
Otherwise, we're gonna stay here forever.
Okay. So final thoughts. As terrible as it is to say, Gamergate has cost me friends. People who have disagreed with me, who feel that I am on the wrong side of history. And some of those are people that I feel bad that it's put a rift in our friendship. And I wish that it wasn't that way. I really do. But shikatane.
C'est la vie.
Have a good one.
Yeah, that's about it. Thanks for coming on, and I hope you had a lovely time.
Yeah, thanks for having me on here. And like I mentioned, if anybody wants to chat with me on Twitter, let me post my.
I have it in the description now, so.
It is in the description.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't see it in the
update the video when it's there.
Okay. All right, and I'm just gonna post it in the chat again here.
Yeah, and be civil, guys. So yeah, thanks everyone for watching, everyone, and see you guys next time. Bye.
Have a good one.